Welcome, one and all, to Astro Lunatic's Guide to the Universe. I am Susan, also known as Astro Lunatic. And if you keep up with my weekly shows, you know they normally come out on Sunday, though I didn't put one out this Sunday. I was just going to take a break, but uh, I don't know. I felt inspired today. I was just going to take the week off, do a little self-care and take a mental break. But as I was looking at the astrology today, I said, there are some things to be said, and I feel okay. I feel inspired to do it today. So here I am on Wednesday, April 17th. Let's see where we at in the numerology. Today is a 2 day. That's the date. Reduced down. 4/17/2024. Add it all up. You get a 2. So it's me and you today. Can't believe it. I don't know. It feels like time is just speeding by, which is weird because we're in Mercury retrograde. If you don't know, now you know. And sometimes Mercury retrograde can make things seem like they're moving forward so slowly. So, on one level, they are. There is something going on where we need to rewind and rethink and reframe the story of the past. As Mercury is retrograde in Aries, it's about the self, the individual, and our ability to take action, which is a little stunted right now because Mars is in Pisces, where Mars usually likes to move forward and do it quickly. Mars is kind of sloggy in Pisces, and it doesn't take the direct route, and it isn't above board. It is very much below the surface. So a lot of the action and changes that are happening are below deck, if you will. It's very subconscious, unconscious, running through the collective conscious and playing out in the astral and in dreams, because that's the realm of Pisces. So let us share the screen so we can all see what's going on, what the hell is going on in the heavens. And what is up with Uranus? Jupiter and Uranus are almost exactly conjunct. So we can feel big change. There's a lot of strange things going on, unusual. That's definitely falls under Uranian energy, and it's big. It's things we've never seen before, and they are more exaggerated, really, because of Jupiter. Jupiter comes along and expands, exaggerates, exacerbates. Jupiter, it all boils down to our beliefs, our ideologies, our faith, religion. Jupiter is one of the co-rulers, but it's basically the ancient ruler. Before Neptune was discovered, Jupiter was the ruler of Pisces. So it does make sense. Jupiter also rules Sagittarius, which is, our beliefs and our ideologies, which falls under spirituality and religion and Pisces kind of covers that too. So Mars, the planet of war, is coming to make its sextile to Uranus and Jupiter. And Uranus is different. It's unusual. It is, as the ruler of Aquarius, has to do with groups, networks, associations, friends, also people who gather together in groups through networks on social media and the internet. Now, Jupiter and Uranus are about to bust us out in a way that we've never seen before, and Mars is putting pressure on that as it moves closer to the sextile, which is happening very much over the next week or so. Looking at the dates, I would say probably, 419, 419, 420, around there, we will have Mars more coming into exact alignment, sextile. Sextiles are creative. Sextile is 60 degrees in the zodiac circle here. And it's giving a push. It's giving a spark to Jupiter and Uranus. And a lot of this is really unconscious, really, I mean, within the collective of a large group or body of people, it is very much instinctual. And below the surface, we can't see it. Pisces is the natural sign of the 12th house, which is the hidden house, right? So it is very much a karmic collective, sort of a breakthrough, breakout moment coming here. And on the individual level, it is some kind of push or, instinctive action that is really coming from our subconscious at the same time that it is very much directed by um, a a group effort that we're not even aware of, self-organizing collective. It's a very interesting energy. And at the same time, we have this Mercury retrograde, which is dealing with us all in different ways, but it is what comes down to our Aries energy, wherever that falls in our chart, where we want to be the first, want to do something different, where we focus on ourselves, where we need to focus on ourselves. And so much energy with that comes with Chiron, the healing. As a collective, it's about the healing of an individual. We may be focusing on an individual in, media. I mean, that's how we all kind of get access to public figures, right? So the focus on an individual is very much reflective of the changes that are happening within our consciousness as a group, as individual smaller groups, which would have to do with our faith, our ideologies, our philosophies are religion. Pisces has a lot to do with our connection to spirit, to what is beyond the veil, let's say. So Saturn in Pisces has felt to me like a blockage in connecting with spirit, in being able to understand and connect with spirit and God. You know, our concept of God is associated through the signs of Pisces and Sagittarius because it's religion and spirituality. So there's religion, the ideologies, the sort of rules that man creates, this structure, that Sagittarius, the beliefs, you know, the practices, the rules that we follow. And that ties into Virgo. Uh, but Sagittarius squares to Pisces, and Virgo opposes Pisces. And Pisces is where we're trying to get to that unfathomable thing. I mean, we only have so many words to describe it. And in with religion, we're sort of relying on other people to interpret God and tell us how to connect with God and how to understand what is really undefinable, ineffable. That's Pisces. And Pisces is where our collective consciousness resides. So, with Saturn being there, I mean, Saturn is the structure of the material world, and Pisces is formless and without structure. But Saturn also represents a blockage where we feel that disconnect. We feel the lack of connection. We feel disconnected from ourselves spiritually, disconnected from God. But it's Saturn is where we strive to sort of fill that lack and understand the blockage, the disconnection, the feeling of not being able to connect, whether it's with one another or with our own selves spiritually or with God, our concept of God. So there's a lot going on here. Mars conjuncted Saturn, and I think there was a level of being able to kind of break down the walls and the maybe the avoidance uh, that Saturn might be bringing. There was a lot of frustration. There was an awareness of the blockage because here's Mars moving, trying to move forward through this spiritual morass and malaise, really, of feeling unable. And with the Mercury retrograde, because Mars rules Aries and the retrograde is in Aries, Chiron is in Aries, Venus is in Aries, and the sun is in Aries. Everything is focused on Aries. So Mars conjunct Saturn last week was like, all right, you know, we got to stop. We got to review and analyze, like, where is this blockage? Where is the pain? Where's the wounding? Where's the disconnect? Where are we feeling unable to communicate? Where do we need to go back over the past and find the root of whatever situation and difficulty we find ourselves in now? I mean, whether that's looking at global conflict or looking at conflict in our own lives. Mars is about conflict. The nodes are in Aries and Libra, which are about conflict and peace, harmony and balance. It's about balancing the individual and their needs and their identity with another person because we see ourselves reflected in the other. So if we could just go back and rewind a little bit, we could look at some of the aspects that have been pivotal points, I'm going to say, where we could go all the way back to, let's start with April 1st. It started with the Mercury retrograde. That's the day that Mercury went retrograde, 27 Aries. It started then, but the momentum and the energy was building. So we get to the eclipse after that. These are the pivotal days. So if you want to, I mean, if you keep track of these things, I do. Uh, we could even look at April 3rd, Venus conjunct to Neptune. And this is that idea of unconditional love and looking at our relationships, looking at our values and what brings us joy and happiness. And I think with Neptune, we have to look at where we maybe not seeing things clearly. And then Mercury goes retrograde. Then we fast forward to the 8th, we have the eclipse. 19 degrees. So 19 degrees is very important. That's where we had the eclipse, sun, moon, and Chiron. All right. So solar eclipse is a new moon. It is connected to the nodes of the moon, the nodes of fate. That's why we have eclipses, has to do with the intersection of the ecliptic of the sun and the moon. And that's why these are fate points and they reset, let's say, every 6 months. Simplistic, I know, but it's markers in time. It's the way we can, through astrology, delineate the chapters of our lives, and we can break them up into 6 month series with episodes every week. So it started here, new beginning. The lunar eclipse was March 25th. That's a full moon. That's a culmination or ending of a chapter. Things get illuminated. We tend to see, okay, there it is. I get it now. There can be events in your life, something comes up and it highlights the thing that you've been working on since the last eclipses, since October, November. So look at it that way. And we have to look at, what we're learning, what we are working on personally, and how those things are playing out in our everyday life, in our relationships, in our career path, in our family, in our finances, that kind of thing. All right, so we have a new beginning, April 8th. Mercury is retrograde. After that, the moon starts to move away from the sun, and Mercury moves towards the sun. So the next interesting day, April 10th. So April 10th, I'm going to call it interesting because if you keep track of these things, we might have seen a glimpse of what is to come when Mars makes the sextile to Jupiter, Uranus. There could have been a clue, a hint. Again, personal, different for everybody. But if you look at what's going on in the world, then that's when we had the Mars conjunct Saturn, which slows you down. That's a stoppage. That's a blockage. That's at the very least, feeling a lack of energy, a lack of movement. But it was preparing us for what's to come when Mars sextiles Jupiter and Uranus, because Jupiter Uranus is bringing the big thing, the big change, the big reset, the collective awakening, aha, whatever you want to call it, or your breakthrough, or your stroke of luck. It's different for everybody. I just want to make note that I know I hear a lot of spiritual people talking about this big alignment with Jupiter and Uranus. Yeah, it is big. Yeah, it is going to bring a lot of change, and it is definitely a pivotal moment right now. Uh, it's going to be different for everybody. Um, yes, there can be luck associated with it, but really all that we can break it down, unless we look at the individual's chart of where this is going to play out and how it's going to affect a person on the individual level. I mean, we don't know unless we look at the chart. The only thing that we can count on is it's new, it's big, it's unusual. It can be uh, associated with any of the themes of Uranus, Aquarius energy, and Jupiter, Sagittarius, which could be any number of things. Like if I want to look at it from the Jupiter Sagittarius legal perspective and the Uranus Aquarius social media internet technology perspective, this could be, just to break it down, a huge class action lawsuit or a large number of individuals coming together to bring justice through the legal system or through, people, a group of people that centers around and through networks of technology, which would be social media, let's say, um, who congregate and network because of their shared beliefs and philosophies and their commitment to wanting to see justice. So this is a long-term influence, but it starts now and it starts with the eclipse and it centers around an individual. It is a feeling, a desire of wanting to break free from whatever is blocking, whatever the blockage is that we came up with. We've decided that that's not acceptable. We want to move towards freedom, expansion, justice, um, things and people that align with our goals and our beliefs and our commitment to the future and Aquarian values, which are, Aquarius is very egalitarian. It wants to see fairness and equality across the board, and it wants to see the individual honored for who they are, you know, unalienable rights, so to speak. Um, the individual within the collective so that that person can take their position and their contribute their time and their talents and um, building towards something that is going to benefit everyone. That is very much Aquarius. So the fact that Jupiter and Uranus are in Taurus, which is a physical earth sign, it is about building something physical. It is about taking the non-physical, the intangible, Jupiter and Uranus being the planets that represent Sagittarius and Aquarius, which are fire and air. It's taking that fire, that creative inspiration, and the mental genius of Aquarius and Uranus and bringing it down into something that is going to benefit in the physical, most notably financial. And if we look at Venus, because Venus rules this Taurus alignment here, we want to see where she is. She's in Aries. She's independent. She's fierce. It is about individual rights, resources, the right to exist and make a living. And so this is part of the energy that's building. The 11th was interesting. That's another marker day because Mercury retrograde was conjunct the sun. So there was some realization, communication from an individual about an individual, a focus on someone from the past, on their past, on our past. We're looking back on our past. We're looking back on our origins. We're going back with Mercury retrograde. And the sun represents the soul, the core identity, and trying to understand ourselves as an individual and going back to the source of what it is that we're working out with Mars. Okay. Aries, we got to go to Mars. Mars just went through a huge blockage here. So Mars is working through the subconscious to release that blockage so that it can give us this freedom here, this new beginning, this collective inspiration, creative force, amazing ideas, a lot. There's a lot going on here. A lot going on with creating, a new financial system. We often hear about the reset, but the reset is really collective. No matter what our perspective is or has been, I think it's changing. I think the individuals are realizing that we have a lot more say in what happens in the future than we really thought. And that's part of the blockage we're working through. And coming together as individuals because we are of like mind. And this is people coming together to create the future because of the shared beliefs, Jupiter. Okay. But there is connection, reconnection. This could be, reconnecting with people from the past. It could be reconnecting with your past in the sense of memories, thoughts, and feelings of who we were in the past. Where did things go wrong? Where did we get off the path? Where do we need to heal? Because that's coming. That started with the eclipse. It's coming. So then we jump forward to the 15th. And we have Mercury now retrograding, going back to the past and coming together at this degree with Chiron. This is the degree of the solar eclipse. And the solar eclipse, obviously, it's already happened, but it's playing out and it's unfolding. It's revealing itself to us by going back to the past, doing some deep inner seeking to connect with who we really are. Where did we lose that along the way? And connecting with the past so we can heal that. And we're doing it through communication, hopefully, if you have people around you in your life and you're looking at your patterns of communication and maybe how to communicate frustration and anger, let's say, uh, how to move forward together. Because remember, the ruler of the eclipse, the ruler of Aries, Mars here, is pushing towards the Jupiter Uranus to create the big new thing or to handle the changes that are coming. And it requires communication. So there's a lot being worked through here with relationships and our sense of identity, and maybe even looking at how our sense or our idea of our individuality, who we are as a person, how it has been formed through our relationships, formed and informed. Because a lot of times we get error messages, we take in and assimilate messages externally from, our family, our parents. It comes from a very deep place of who we are and who we're not. And this, on a mental reset level, is going back to erase that sort of hard drive from all of the errant messages of who we are, who people think we are, where we get our validation from. And if we're not getting that validation, relying on external messages from other people to affirm, that we're worthy, that we're worth it, that we're whatever, that we're loved, we have the right to exist. Anyway, there's a lot going on. And with Mars in Pisces, there's dealing with a lot, like a deep level of anger and frustration that has been maybe repressed and sublimated. So if we're not dealing with those things and not acknowledging that we're frustrated, that we're angry, that we feel that we've been not seen for who we are, spoken rudely to. I mean, these are just examples of how this could be playing out with people. How do we fight? How do we express our pain and anger, frustration? Do we take it out on other people? Do we feel like people are taking it out on us? Do we feel like our needs are not being acknowledged? There's so much going on here. So with the Mercury retrograde, we can go back and look at the wounding. We can go back and look at maybe our frustration, our anger, our blockages to becoming who we are, our blockages to connecting to spirit, to who we are as a spirit, not just an individual. Ego, that is Aries. There's a lot of ego wounding here and a lot being worked out in relationships because Venus is here. Venus has us coming back to self-love, right? Venus is love. Aries is the self. And this is coming back to what do we want? What do we want? What is going to help us to heal? And a lot of it has to do with communication, you know, like speak to me with kindness and not being passive aggressive or not being checked out or, not making the effort, whatever it is, we need to talk about it. That will be good. If you can't talk to the person, have mental conversations. I do that all the time. It does help. As long as you're not directing your negativity at the person, because then that becomes a psychic attack. And that's another thing that can be happening with Mars in Pisces, psychic attack. I saw that with Mars when it was coming towards Saturn there. That felt like a psychic attack to me. Um, so, if you want to look at it in terms of that, we are battling for our right, our selfhood, our we're defending ourselves in the astral, in the psychic space. And a lot of that is needing to detach ourselves, coming back to self. I was just talking to someone recently about this, about how sometimes it's hard to distinguish our own energy from another person's energy because we get so intertwined when we're close to people. Um, if you live with people, if there's issues going on, it's hard to detach from that because in the psychic space, we can be very affected by the person. And it's hard if you live with the person because you gotta, you know, it's like you can separate, go out for the day and take a walk, try to calm yourself and get back to center, get back to self. But then you go back into that environment and then you are like rewounded or reprogrammed. So it can be very difficult. And the best way to get back to who we are and what we want is to put distance between ourselves and another person. So, I mean, that could be happening with this Mercury retrograde too, where we distance ourselves, maybe take a break, uh, maybe separate even, um, or just even agree, like within a friendship or a couple, like if there's friction, um, and we're facing difficult confrontation, it might be even a good idea to say, hey, you know what? Let's take this time, this Mercury retrograde, great time to do it, to just not make a decision and maybe not even talk about it because it's too heated right now. There's too much pain around it. Let's just deal with it individually. Put it on the shelf. Don't ignore it. Just put it on the shelf and work through it separately and then come back together and say, here's who I am. Here's how I feel. This is what I need as an individual to be honored in a healthy way in this relationship, to feel validated, whatever it is. Here's how I feel about the issue and what I feel about the solution, that kind of thing. That's a really good thing to do right now with Venus in Aries coming to the North Node. I mean, these conversations could have happened during this time because on the 15th, the sun more or less reached the degree of the Mercury retrograde. So we could be there could have been some kind of shift, conversation, uneasiness, going back to, you know, a period a period of maybe difficulty, frustration with the Mercury retrograde, and it could have started around the 1st of April. But now, with the sun being there, it brings more illumination of what the root of the issue is. And the root really is communication and the need for healing and the need to get back to who we are as an individual and how we need to deal with the changes that are coming. Okay, so the 15th, that was a interesting day because again, Mercury retrograde joining with Chiron is triggering the solar eclipse degree. Every time we have 19 degrees of Aries being triggered, we'll have it when Venus gets there, and we'll have it when Mars gets there. That's the solar eclipse being triggered. That's the new start. That's the new focus on ourselves as an individual. That's us hitting the reset button and saying, you know what? I want something new. This needs to change. I want to cooperate. These things are changing. I want to cooperate with them. Who am I? What do I want? What do I want in my relationships? What do I want with my communications? What do I want with my future? What do I want with my career? How do people see me? How do I see myself? How do I want to be seen? All of those things. And it's all about the individual and the power of the individual to shift reality, shift the external manifestation of our internal stuff. That's Mars here in Pisces, about to sextile Jupiter Uranus. To me, I feel like that is, if we could get down to the core of what's going on here with the Mercury retrograde and Chiron, looking at the wounding, looking where we need to heal, looking at the all those Chiron things like mind, body, spirit connection. That's Chiron. Mind, body, spirit. How do we heal all three of those? How are we resetting ourselves on the mental, on the emotional, and on the physical level? So just by our focus, we're doing that. We're shifting, we're healing. And so there's a lot of potential for completely, there's a lot of potential for seeing in our physical Taurus realm, which includes our resources. There's a lot of potential for um, creating from a deep spiritual place here through our own spiritual warfare, which attacks is an attack on the individual. You know, there are um, whatever you want to call them, negative spiritual forces that come against us, whether it's through our own, you know, psyche. It is on the spiritual level. It attacks us on the subconscious. It attacks in the astral space, in our dreams. It can come through individuals. It can come from a greater collective energy that wants to stop a particular type of person, a type of movement, a type of, you know, a type of individual from coming together with other like minds, because if they unite, they're very powerful. That's how I see a lot of what's going on right now. So with the 15th, we had the first quarter square of the sun to the moon. It's like the opening act, and it has to do with the soul and the individual, Aries, and the will and the courage to fight, bravery. and the moon in its home sign of Cancer, and needing and wanting to protect, right? Cancer needs, wants security. It is home and family, yes. It does have to do with the parental axis of Cancer Capricorn. So a lot of what we're going back towards is our family upbringing and the rewriting the messages really that came from our early beginnings, but being able to shift our focus and our emotional sort of state, um, to come more into alignment with who we are as an individual. So then let's see. For 2 days, the 15th and the 16th, Mercury, Chiron, very much looking towards healing on a mental level, mental health. A lot having to do, you know, I, I think that's probably like where I was at when I decided I just wasn't going to do a show this week. Because I'm busy. I'm dealing with a lot of other things and just feeling just drained and knocked out. I'm seeing on social media a lot of people relating their experience and how they feel mentally and emotionally and physically just drained from the eclipse. I've found myself not really wanting to look at social media. It's just like, it's the same old, nothing new. And it's kind of draining. I felt like I needed a rest, but I feel a little better today, so I'm here. So the 15th, 16th, 17th, we're at the 17th right now. A lot going on with healing, with wounding, going back to the Mars stuff. There's conflict, there's war. There's a war in the spiritual and there's a war in the physical, right? Um, and it is definitely pushing towards this whole thing with Jupiter, Uranus, beliefs, religion, a lot around that. So I'm not going to go into that whole conflict. We've got Venus coming to the North Node. It's destiny. I mean, the things that are playing out are over Venus, our values, our resources, which are, being affected by Jupiter and Uranus. A lot of our issues around our selfhood, our individuality are based in how we perceive resources, the abundance or lack thereof, or how these things are changing, how our finances are being affected. I think a lot of people are looking at that and wanting to be independent. How do we do that? How do we shift that? Um, Mercury, Chiron here, it's at 19, and Mars is at 19 in Pisces. That's a semi-sextile. And it's sort of a first house, 12th house, behind the scenes, hidden aspect where there's frustration maybe and actions being taken behind the scenes, behind our backs, things making us feel uncomfortable, needing to talk about things that make us uncomfortable, maybe release some anger and frustration. And so that is a minor aspect. We don't often talk about that, but it is uncomfortable and it's nagging. It's kind of that nagging thing in the background where it's like, ugh, so bucking over it, whatever it is. We want something different. 17, that's today. The moon's in Leo. That's why I feel good, because the moon is making a trine to Mercury and Chiron. I feel like I've gotten past that point of what I needed to release, what I needed to think about and go back over and look at. I've done a lot of that, really, like depth psychology without a therapist. My higher self is a therapist. Um, so the moon making a trine from a fire sign, Leo, which is about, you know, wanting and needing love, attention, and to feel important and to be able to speak our minds and to express ourselves in order to heal. And the North Node with Venus is bringing us where we're moving towards. That's the North Node in relationships with our values, with our finances, because as we work those things out, as we sort of feel more, it's like we need to feel heard and seen for who we are. We need to be able to express ourselves. We have to have that freedom. And Mars is pushing us towards that freedom of expression. That's Jupiter. Jupiter and Uranus is, um, free to have our unconventional beliefs, free to be able to manifest and use our voice to create resources. There's a particular situation that I've been watching, and I think maybe that this is going to grow into sort of a greater movement. So, if I could just generalize it, I could see people coming together in groups through social media and the networks of, the internet, coming around, rallying around and fighting for an individual, probably a female, most likely, but it would be somebody who represents our values as an individual and demanding justice and pursuing it with Mars, sextile, Jupiter, Uranus. That can be people pushing, rallying, um, making a group effort around a person, for a person, or following and agreeing with a person because we relate to their values. This is a lot of probably new networks and associations through friend groups, through faith groups, through, it's really, I mean, it probably transcends all of that. It's more that, the core values align. We're fighting for the same thing. It's like, I may not agree with what you have to say, but I'll fight for your right to say it. It really does feel like this could be something from the past with Mercury retrograde. I am thinking about a very particular situation that I'm watching play out on social media, which is mysterious. We don't have all of the information right now. Centers around a female a creator, a content creator, and I could just see, well, she lost her revenue, so I could see people organizing over the belief that we have a right to self-determine when it comes to how we how we speak, how we our ideas, our right to have our opinions, how we express them, and the right to earn a living and not have that denied us because somebody doesn't like what we have to say and they have more money and more power in this world to stop us. Anyway, so that's why I'm saying there's a lot of this archetype playing out. So the individual, the Leo, the moon in Leo, right? The moon is the collective, the moon is the emotional climate, and feeling like we want to show who we are, express ourselves, feel confident, feel loved and admired. And in this, the sun that rules Leo is in Aries, wanting and needing to be acknowledged for ourselves as an individual of what we are here to do and create. And, we want to feel like we have value, like we have a place in society, and that everyone should be allowed to do so and not feel like they're being threatened, their livelihood is being threatened because of what they say. Now, within reason, we have laws. There's slander and defamation, and, we have laws against committing crimes. And if no one's committed a crime, I mean, if they have, then go to court and prove it. So today I'm seeing the mothering energy come in, where the mother represented, let's say, by the moon. The moon is the mother. And Ceres here, Ceres sextile to Mars, and both making it in conjunct to the moon. I think there's a need to feel like, the mothering energy is here to protect. Leo is pretty fierce. Protect the individual. So the situation I'm looking at, thinking about, I'm thinking that her mother is going to step in and fight. She's going to need to. Anyway, enough of that. So the important dates, we're looking at important dates having to do with the solar eclipse degree when that's activated, and Mercury retrograde. Those are the important things that we're looking at. So the 18th, moon will be in Virgo. So we've got Mercury and Venus coming together here. So we're going back in some way to talk about, to think about, to rework, reframe our story in terms of finances, in terms of females, in terms of love and feeling loved. I think we need to maybe look at, what do we need to feel loved as an individual? What is it that we feel like we need to express our values? How have we not expressed that? How can we express that in a different way? And whatever we're working through internally, Mars is just getting closer to that 21 degrees where it's going to sextile. It's by sheer will, sheer desire and force of will and emotion that is going to create a change, a big change in our physical reality, whether it's resources, whether it's stability and our how it's affecting our belief system, right? And we need to come into contact and how do I put this? It's like the higher self and the lower self coming down and have meeting in the middle and having a conversation saying we need to get on the same page here because your external is not really reflecting your internal. So we're processing a lot. If we're not talking to our loved ones, people that we're in close relationship, we're evaluating it. We're looking at the past. We're realizing things. We are digging in the dirt and realizing that we are recalculating our path as far as our finances, what's our values, what's important to us. You know, Venus, ruler of Taurus, that's our values. It's also our possessions and things of values, but Jupiter's also our values too, our beliefs, our ideologies. A lot is being worked out in terms of understanding how our subconscious is affecting our conscious world, external experience, relationships. We're just dealing with a lot of identity, relationships, the will and the force to move forward, and our beliefs that are inhibiting where we want to go. So let's see. We're just moving closer and closer to this pimple pop. The 19th, the moon is opposed to Saturn. I think we are critiquing a lot. We want to hold someone responsible and accountable. We're looking at accountability. We have to be looking at are where are we responsible for setting boundaries? The conversation with Mercury retrograde and Venus here conjunct 17 degrees revolves around, man, that's when Mars is sextile to Jupiter and Uranus. Exactly. So it's like things are changing, things have changed, things are, like, this is it. We got to make a change. Where are we going? What do we want? Do we have the communication in relationship to be able to talk to that person? If there's friction and you're off balance, wherever there's the blockage here, whatever the karmic lesson is within this relationship, the moon opposite Saturn is going to highlight it. Absolutely. I mean, it may come up where people are hypercritical, where people are projecting, blaming you. There could be a lack of self-awareness on the part of another person to be accountable, and they're not taking their responsibility possibly for um looking at their side of it. So if you're dealing with someone like that, it'll probably come up then because Mars is forcing the issue. You know, Jupiter, Uranus in Taurus here wants something different. It believes that things can be different, that we can have abundance, resources. We have the will to go after it. And it's coming from very deep spiritual place inside of us, and it's connecting to the collective consciousness. And we are warring for this on the spirit level, on the astral level. So there could be conversations happening. We could be talking about a female, an individual, or two, a female, or talking about, it could be anything, women's issues, or fighting for, I could see that, fighting for an individual and talking about people's rights to finance and self-determination and being independent, being a creator. And this is total content creation. I could see that. Um, we could see somebody else being, you know, attacked, having to defend themselves. And, you know, with Virgo here, Virgo, moon in Virgo, I mean, maybe comes from a helping place, wanting to help. It analyzes things, it looks at all the details. Opposing Saturn, if we're using this for ourselves, we're analyzing our own responsibility, what our own blockages are, if we're doing that in a healthy way. And Mercury rules Virgo. So we're looking at, this is a lot of self-reflection, self-confidence, self-worth type stuff. So the blockage, we may look for the blockage on that day. But this is the day, a lot of movement here with Mars sextiling to Jupiter, Uranus, Venus. Venus does rule Libra, and the moon will be moving towards Libra, towards the South Node. Diplomacy, fairness, negotiations. Very intense time. The sun moves into Taurus that day, and that should bring more focus to Venus in terms of finances, values, self-worth, that kind of thing. This could be increase in prices also with Mars in Neptune. We could definitely be looking at huge spikes in the prices of fuel, I would say, probably. Anyway, what's new? Everyone knows this. It's not like it's a big surprise. Everyone knows when certain things happen in certain places around the globe. There's other things that are going to happen as a result. So, well, the sun does bring our focus, right? It's been in Aries. It's about, the individual, it's anger, it's war, it's weapons increased. We've seen since the eclipse a huge increase in violent, chaotic events. That's only going to be amplified here. So the sun shifting focus from the individual to the individual's resources and values as the sun moves into Taurus, and need for stability. We're not really finding a whole lot of that, but we're thinking about it. We're talking about it. We're negotiating for it by the 19th. So moving on to the 20th. Let's see. The Mercury retrograde is moving towards the North Node, where it will station and go direct. It's going to take about a week, right? probably, I think the 25th. Yeah, the April 25th. So like 5 days from the 20th. Venus is moving towards Chiron. We're moving towards getting a grip on our individual healing, our relationships. Mercury is going towards the North Node. So, whatever the big shebang is on the 19th, we're moving forward and discussing, evaluating, recalculating where we want to be. The 22nd, Mars, where is it? I mean, Mars is really still sextile to Uranus and Jupiter. Jupiter moves on to 22nd degree of Taurus. It's still in a sextile. So there's a push. I mean, it feels like there's going to be a big push on the part of individuals to make something happen, whatever it is. Like, if there's a change gonna happen, it's got to be up to me. The change starts with me. And Mercury coming towards the North Node is telling us about our destiny, our purpose, it's revealing to us where we're moving forward in the future. So by the time Mercury gets out of retrograde, we're going to kind of know. And then we're going to go back over that ground that Mercury has retrograded through and go back to the degree of the Venus conjunction and then the degree of the Chiron conjunction with the degree of the solar eclipse. So all these things are unfolding and revealing to us. We just have to keep pushing. So sometime around the 22nd, Venus Chiron is, I mean, that is a positive aspect in terms of moving forward towards healing and understanding and getting in alignment with our values and being able to heal ourselves first. Going back to who we are, I see a lot of that with this time period, with the retrograde, the solar eclipse, and Venus coming through Aries, moving over those degrees. So by the 22nd, we've got the moon. It conjuncts the south node here in Libra. There's a release, a letting go, something having to do with, Libra, Venus, letting go, moving forward independently with honor to self. Maybe we are separating from an individual. Maybe we are separating from a pattern. Maybe we're, moving through a time period of going over past hurts and trying to heal those things and taking a new pattern and a new person into our future relationships with better communication. And these are just kind of wrapping up. I feel like we come to the full moon. That's a peak, a culmination. So it's the sun in Taurus opposed to the moon in Scorpio. It has to do with our values and other people's values, our resources and other people's resources. It's looking at what do we actually have here? What do we have? The sun in Taurus. How are we trying to create stability? What are our values? And what comes out that may have been hidden is showing us other people's resources, other people's values, other people's motives and intentions, um, where they're at in terms of where they want to go. What are they healing? What are they? The Scorpio has a lot to do with the psychological underpinnings of what goes on in relationships. So there could be, and Scorpio is a sign that likes to hide things. Uh, and the moon and the sun on this full moon on the 23rd is square to Pluto. That's really difficult because it's going to expose the power dynamic. It's going to expose obsession, control. Pluto rules, it's one of the rulers, rules Scorpio. And Pluto is in Aquarius. So can have a lot to do with things and groups of people online and aggression, stalking, horrific things, interfering with other people's ability to make a living. Again, I'm really thinking about this girl's situation and how this might unfold. Scorpio has to do with investigating, diving deep, dredging out the hidden things. There will be something hidden that comes out, maybe having to do with groups of people, social media, technology, finances, resources, shared resources, hidden resources. Somebody could be finding out that their partner has you know, a rainy day slush fund that you didn't know about. Or maybe you do. I don't know. Uh, ugh. Okay, so a lot to do with Pluto. Yeah, transformation, Pluto, death and rebirth. Something could be coming up about someone's death. Unusual death. I did say that in the past about Pluto in Aquarius. Unusual deaths. Aquarius is unusual. Pluto is death. Also, the transformation of people, collectives, friend group and associations on the internet, but also criminal activity. And this full moon will expose more depths around what we might already know about certain people's criminal activity. And this will expose hidden things that we did not know. So it will also, I think it'll also bring up patterns of addiction, uh, and other psychological complexes that tend to go hand in hand with addiction. Let's say uh, certain personalities like avoidant, narcissistic, um, detachment in the sense of not being able to communicate when things get intense. So, you know, anxious, avoidant, anxious, you have an anxious partner, anxious connection, attachment style, and the avoidant. So the avoidant detaches, the anxious pursues and tries to draw them out, and dynamics like that, codependency, all of the relationship dynamics that are rooted in patterns in families, let's say, um, that have a disposition towards addiction, substance abuse. Addictions doesn't have to necessarily be substance. This can be other things, but you know, we are dealing with Pluto and we are dealing with the moon in Scorpio. Um, This could be things where someone is addicted to online gambling, and the partner finds out, oh, that's where all the money's been going. Holy crap. Or they've been spending money on drugs, substances, porn addictions, all of those things. So that's the 23rd. That's our full moon. There is a culmination. Venus is, notice where Venus is. Venus is at that 22-degree mark of Aries, where Mercury and the Sun met on April 11th. Look at April 11th. There will be some issue that comes back to money, finances, relationships, self-worth, females. Um, that was an issue on the 11th. When Mercury retrograde. It's an important conjunction when Mercury retrograde conjuncts the sun, and it always happens during every Mercury retrograde. That's always a day to watch. Always watch, listen, be aware. What's the news? What's the communication about? What is being revealed to you at that time? What's happening out in the world? Those are important days. Now, Venus is going to come in here and trigger that degree. So it's Venus does bring value, it brings healing in a sense. It's a positive, benefic planet. It's making a semi-sextile to Jupiter and Uranus. So, you know, this could be a restitution of some sort, or the red flag came up with Mercury retrograde and the sun at 22 Aries on April 11th, possibly, give or take a day or two. And now Venus comes in. Venus is going to give you the physical proof. Venus is, in terms of Taurus, it is the physical proof. So mark that day. If this is an issue, if this is about someone's finances, if there's anything going on with your finances that you might have missed, if you suspected, this could also be rectification of an issue on the 11th. If something came up and there was a difficult situation and you were addressing it, then by the full moon, Venus here could bring a solution or a rectification of resolution in some way. So, okay, so the 24th, then we have the 24th and the 25th. We've still got Jupiter Uranus conjunct 22 degrees. Again, that 22 is an important degree. 22 is also a master number. It's part of the Builder series. 11 is the individual. 22 I look at as the next level, building with someone else. 2 and 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. That's 4 walls. That's stability, working to build stability, whether you're doing it on your own or you're doing it with another person. Mars is in conjunct to Venus. Watch your back. Just watch. Watch and see what you feel motivated or pushed or inspired to do. Is it coming from you, or is it coming from a place of externally by other people? Is someone trying to push you or railroad you into doing a certain thing, um, to push things moving forward? But we do have a sense of renewed values and a renewed sense of self here, with Venus having gone through these degrees already with through Aries. So, we're coming to a point where we may be able to make a decision, but we're waiting for things to be revealed. Don't make the decision. Don't sign off. That's Mercury retrograde. We usually recommend don't make the big decision. Don't start the new thing. Go through the evaluation process. There's a lot that's going to come out after the full moon by the 25th, because by the 25th, Mars is conjunct the North Node. Mercury is conjunct the North Node. This is going to give us our marching orders. By now we have evaluated what our trajectory, our direction, our purpose, that's the North Node, our destiny, through all of the reassessing of who we are and reassessing all of the information and the data. Mars is still here with Neptune, so there's still, even though Mercury goes retrograde, direct on the 25th on the North Node, we're being given the big picture. Okay? The moon in Scorpio, listen to your intuition. Allow Mercury retrograde to reveal to you the hidden things. As far as where Venus is, it's making an inconjunct to the moon. There's something coming up that we didn't see, because also the moon is going to be opposed to Jupiter and Uranus. There's a lot coming out on this day. The what did I say? The 23rd, sorry. Between the 23rd with the full moon, the 24th, the 25th, there is so much going on that we need to see, because also with the moon in Scorpio making a trine to Mars and Neptune, whatever the motives are, Mars, that have been hidden, Neptune, whatever the hidden thing is, the moon is going to trigger that and expose that. So, and it's Jupiter, it's big, it's Uranus, it's shocking, it's surprising, it's new, it's, I mean, we're talking, when we're talking about Taurus and Scorpio, don't forget, we're talking about shared finances, our finances and other people's finances. So that also deals with inheritance, legacies and wills, insurance policies, legal lawsuit payouts, seizure of assets. So I just think that the moon is going to be revealing a lot when it goes through Scorpio in terms of Mercury retrograde. Even though it's direct by the 25th, it's still not the time to really make a big decision. Wait until the dust settles. In fact, wait until the next new moon in Taurus, because there's so much changing right now. I think that by the time we get to the new moon, because the sun will be around 19 degrees of Taurus. That's going to show us what we have, what we're working with, what things are going to look like on the other side of it, if that makes sense. So, I mean, not to say that you can't do anything, but if it's stuff you already know about that and you have to make a decision, you make the decision based on what you know. Like if something or somebody is exposing themselves in a way that we never saw them before, take that to heart. Don't ignore those red flags because it's telling you where you need to go with a relationship, with a financial situation, with how you are transforming as a person, what you're seeing and what you're not seeing. It's all a time for revelation. Let it be revealed. Make your moves based on what you do know. Come from a place of healing, not wounding. Work on the communications. Get back to yourself and who you are. I think Mars, once it gets past Neptune, things will be, Mars will be going into Aries, where it rules, where it's happy. Um, Communication and action and the anger, all of that stuff. Mars might feel, we may not understand what's going on. We may not know what to do. We may not even see some of the actions and the fights that are going on. um, because it's happening under the surface, financial things, anything having to do with Neptunian things, religion, holy shit and war. uh, there will be a lot coming up around people's religious beliefs. Yeah. All right, we'll leave it at that. um, as far as, where things are going, when things are changing, Venus shifts into uh its home sign of Taurus on the 29th. So the 29th and the 30th, we have Venus going into Taurus. We have Mars moving into Aries, where they both rule. So on our values, love, relationships, finances, feminine characteristics, our desire for love, sensuality, that's Venus is at home in Taurus, and that's all Taurus type stuff. So we're working on that with our relationships, with our relationship with ourselves, and physical beauty. And then Mars, the masculine principle, is 30 degrees behind that. So they're not really connecting. It's almost like Mars is in the 12th house from Venus, so it's the motivation, it's the action, aggression, assertiveness behind the scenes. If we look at it in terms of actual male and female, this is where the females are at, guys, if you want to know. And this is where the males are at. I mean, Mars in Aries is pure masculine energy. So I would say that there's a reset in terms of the feminine energy represented by Venus and the Mars energy the masculine energy represented by Mars. So every time a planet goes back into its home sign, it's like a reset because it goes through the 12 signs of the zodiac. It transforms, it changes, it learns, and then it comes back to its home again to work on, it's like coming back to self, like I've been talking about. So we're looking at how we take action, how we assert ourselves, how we move forward, um, our own yang masculine energy, and working independently from our yin, our feminine, the attraction. So it is about acting and attracting. Mars acts, Venus attracts. So think about that when you are moving forward. So it really feels like because Mercury slowly gets back up to speed, things are moving forward where they might have been stuck, whatever you were working on, and starting the new thing. Let's call Aries the reset, wherever you're playing that out, yeah, wherever it is in your chart. If it's in your first house, it's about you. If it's in your fourth house, it's about home. If it's in your seventh house, it's about your relationships. If it's in your 10th house, it's about your career, public image, your future, your reputation, your goals, the pinnacle that you're trying to reach. Status. Okay, so different for everybody. We start moving forward when Mercury starts to pick up speed after the retrograde. This is another level of moving forward, April 29th to the 30th, when Venus and Mars shift signs, because everything has to do with Aries and Taurus. Aries being the self and the masculine, and Taurus being the physical, the feminine, the resources, the ability to affect your physical environment and needing to adapt to changes because Uranus has been doing that for quite some time. Jupiter is looking at your values and your ideologies and your faith and wanting to expand your physical base in Taurus, wanting to expand your resources. We have to do it from an individual level. We have to take responsibility, personal responsibility. Don't rely on anybody else. Um, I mean, that's been a hard evaluation, I guess. So, how do we know that we're creating from a personal, a place of empowerment as an individual if we don't know who we are? I think we've been healing that. So by May 1st, mm, we have Jupiter moving towards a sextile with Neptune. And that is just wonderful, positive, creative, but it is expanding the emphasis on Neptune in Pisces. It could be expanding the delusion. We don't know. But I guess the other important days that I'm looking at coming into May, as the Mercury retrograde unwinds and Mercury reaches 19 degrees on May 5th. Important day. The moon will be coming to the North Node and it will pass over Mercury and Chiron. So we are wrapping up whatever it is that we've been working on in that Aries area, the self, the healing, the masculine, the individual, the aggression, the assertiveness, ability to move forward, ability to stand independently. And then Mercury on the 6th and 7th, May 7th, Chiron and Mercury come together. This would be a good time to work some things out if they have been difficult in relationships. There could be conversations here. We're at the new moon by the 7th, 8th, because we've got a big new beginning in Taurus, stability, finances, the physical, the earth, all things having to do with that. And then the moon, first the moon, and then the sun will slowly move towards Uranus. More changes, more innovations, a new way of creating. In Saturn, if May 7th, this new moon, I think, is going to be very positive because Saturn is making a sextile. Saturn is stability, responsibility, commitment. Saturn can be difficult, but it's a reward for our maturity, being accountable, wisdom, right? So there's spiritual wisdom here to be able to create something physical, to grow something. This new moon is a seed planting moon. It's May, the northern hemisphere. If you're in the, east, or I know in the northeast, it's a good time for starting seeds. If you start them indoors, this is our planting season. So the earth, this is about working the earth, the dirt, really getting into the physical. With the new moon, that's a new beginning. A new beginning here after all this turmoil. Sextile to Saturn, committed to our values, committed to our belief systems, a connection, a new connection to what is not tangible. Saturn is tangible. Pisces is intangible. It's making something tangible for us. There's a connection here between earth, physical, and spirit. So, and this is only going to grow. Venus is going to move to that degree in sextile to Saturn. So whether we're renewing a commitment with another person after very difficult time, or reviewing and going back over and making some decisions about how to move forward with things, with each individual person's values, thoughts, and opinions being honored, we can come together with this new moon here between the 7th and the 8th. I think it's probably late on the 7th, but it depends on where you are. So when the moon and the sun join at 17 degrees, Taurus, the sextile to Saturn looks very good. Mercury moving forward comes back to the solar eclipse degree. It's coming back to all those things that happened, transpired, and were worked out with the eclipse. And Mercury is an understanding with Chiron how to heal, and healing the communications, the individual, the rights, the person, the innovation. This could be very, very inspiring new ideas on how to heal physically, how to heal financially. Mars is going to come through with the action and inspiration and push that we need. Things are going to move forward pretty quickly. When Mars gets into Aries, Mercury's moving up to speed. Mercury's not yet at its out of its shadow, but we're moving forward. So May 7th, 8th is a new beginning. Mercury gets to out of the shadow by May 13th. So Sun Uranus, that's a big, you know, push, inspiration, rebellion. That's what I was talking about here with Venus getting to the new moon degree. A lot having to do with money, finances, resources, maybe cryptocurrency, investments, and surprise money. Some people are getting surprise money. I think I'm one of them. I believe I'm one of them. Money comes to me somehow. Like it just, I don't know, comes in mysterious ways. So Mercury will be out of the shadow. That's great. Things will calm down, maybe be a little less mentally argumentative when Mercury gets into Taurus, slows things down. Venus sextile to Saturn. I like that. That is bringing in stability, maybe some new ways to do that, new opportunities. I mean, if these planets are making aspects to your planets, that's where you're going to see big opportunities, big doors open, and possible luck expansion coming from out of the blue. It does feel like it's very unexpected. Jupiter at 27, Mercury at 27. That's 30 degrees. That's a half square. That's an unexpected. This can be a blind spot, but you didn't see this coming. That's not a bad thing. So I think that that's bringing us up to speed. Let me go back and see if there's anything that I might have missed. Aspects to Pluto are important. So Mars will sextile Pluto starting May 1st. I mean, that's courage and you know, being able to take control. Pluto, Mars acting really to take control of your life, of a situation. So around May 1st to May 3rd, going back when, yeah. Well, I told you around April 29th and 30th, that's when we see a shift in the energy because Venus enters Taurus and becomes a little more stable with maybe money and relationships, and our values. We come to our new value system. We're working out our new value system. So when Mars goes into Aries, it'll sextile to Pluto. The moon will be conjunct Pluto that day, and Venus will square to Pluto. So Venus square Pluto, not always a great aspect. That can be control issues around finances and control and violence when it comes to females. Pluto Venus aspects are not good for females necessarily. So, um, but in terms of finances, whatever comes up around the full moon, what was that, the 25th? 23rd. Be aware because then Venus goes into Taurus and will square to Pluto. So, I mean, we could be dealing with fear, obsession. If it's financial addictions, then we're having to exercise some self-control here. Maybe a temptation comes up in relationships, even. Could also be issues with sex. That's Pluto too. Pluto Venus. Oof, I really don't like Pluto Venus. It's very obsessive, controlling, really wants to. It controls out of fear. It controls other people out of fear, jealousy, and again, money, fear of not having it. And Mars sextile to Pluto. I mean, it's good if you're using it for yourself, for self-control, for checking in your finances, making adjustments, getting things under control, and then Mars starting some kind of new regime to change, physical, and Pluto is sticking to it. So those are positive ways. But there could be a clue. Let's go back to when the sun goes into Taurus because it will square April 21st. So it's coming up. So if you really want to know what that's about for you, watch the sun square to Pluto. Watch the obsessive thing, the controlling issue. If someone is trying to control, if there are fears, if there is an issue that you need to be aware of that comes up in May, with the Venus square to Pluto and Mars sextile Pluto, especially if it has to do with the male-female dynamic. If there are red flags, you might see them around April 21st because the sun will square Pluto. So that's what's to watch for. And on April 21st, also the moon will be at the Libra lunar eclipse degree. So if something ended or culminated or came to light with the lunar eclipse on the 25th of March, that thing or that person might come around again because they're afraid of losing. They're afraid of not being able to control the situation. Pluto in Aquarius might have detached. So if you put somebody on mute, kept them on red, put them in the corner, they might be coming back around because they suddenly realize there might be an issue there. And they may have lost you or lost control of the situation. So think about those things with whatever comes up. Mercury is retrograde, and we need to resolve the situation with relationships and healing and communication. So somebody might be ready to talk around that time because Sun square to Pluto is like an ending. Maybe they want to put closure to it. Maybe they want to make sure this is what you want. So around April 21st, not too long from now. All right. I think this is good enough. I think I've exhausted everything that was in my brain. So thanks for hanging out. If you want to know where to find me, look for the links in the description box. If you're interested in booking a reading to go over your chart, look at the eclipses and the Mercury retrograde and what's coming up with the Uranus Jupiter for you. You can reach me on the Astro Lunatic hotline, 914-222-12331, or send me an email at astrolunatic@gmail.com. If you send me an email, I'm going to make it a point because it is Mercury retrograde. This is such a retrograde thing. It could get lost in my junk. I will check my junk. Hee hee hee. I'll check my junk if you check your junk at the door. If you send me an email and you haven't heard anything from me, it could be because it's stuck. Send another one or send me a DM or just hit up the hotline. You can text me on that number. You can leave a voicemail message. If you're interested in looking at your chart and talking about what the options are as far as booking my time, we can do that. There's a link for Buy Me a Coffee in the description if you want to contribute to my astrology habit, or if you want to do a mini reading, I take that also. Um, so you can do that. You can buy me a couple of coffees and ask. Usually I do those for like, you know, one or two questions. Um, Sometimes if people want to do a reading by donation and they just have a certain amount that they want to spend, you know, whatever, I'll work with you. But yeah, everywhere you can find me is down in the description box on this YouTube video. So that's it for this week. Thanks for hanging in there and ciao for